my name's Alex and this is my story. For me, my story starts back in when I was in year 12. We had woken up one morning, my sister and I had woken up one morning and my mum was having a seizure and we could hear Dad trying to rouse her a little bit. So we had to call an ambulance and she got taken to hospital. At that time, she was hooked on alcohol a little bit, well, quite a lot actually, not a little bit. And so while she was in hospital, she started withdrawing from alcohol. Now, if you'd met my mum or had known my mum, she was a small lady, never said a bad word, and would never yell or anything or raise her voice. But when she was in hospital, she turned into a different person. And I had heard things come out of her mouth that I didn't think would come out of her mouth. So from that, and lots of tests and lots of procedures, she was diagnosed with lupus, osteoporosis, and also had a pacemaker put in her heart because her heart was quite weak. When I was in year 12, I finished year 12 throughout all of that, and she was fine. She had health battles throughout the years after that. So I finished year 12 that year, didn't really know what to do at the end of year 12, so decided to go to Thailand after a strong calling. To go to Thailand and work at an orphanage over there. So for 18 months I spent over in Thailand. Towards the end of my time there, I think I was about 22, I felt this desire to come home and get married. I didn't want to leave, I was having a good time over there, but really felt a strong sense to come home. I returned from Thailand when I was about 22 and enrolled into a community development course. So I became a qualified community welfare officer. And got a job working with Prison Network. In 2013, or the start of 2013, I was pregnant with my first child, but at the start of that year, my mum's health started to deteriorate quite significantly. She had been battling her illness for a while, but just at the start of that year, she really started to deteriorate, was in and out of hospital a lot, had a couple of falls, that sort of thing. So by middle of 2013, on the long weekend in June, she actually passed away. I was pregnant at the time, and so I was about 2 weeks due, actually. Nate was due at the end of June, and Mum passed away on the long weekend in June. So that was a really challenging time for me, trying to focus on the birth of our child, but my mum passing away 2 weeks before that. So about a week and a half later, after we had said goodbye to Mum at her funeral, I went into labour with Nate. Everything was fine. It was about a 13-hour labour, all natural. Everything was fine. I delivered him and he wasn't breathing when he was born. So I think I got to hold him for about 5 seconds. The midwife took him out of my arms and realised something was wrong. Tobin was sitting behind me, so he wasn't able to press the emergency button. So she took Nate and he was on the floor and she was trying to do CPR with him on the floor to help him breathe. We had learnt later that he had inhaled the meconium as he was coming out, which means he swallowed his poo, and when he comes out, it's like tar going onto the lungs, so it was very sticky, so his lungs wouldn't inflate and he wasn't breathing when he was born. This started a chaotic, I can't remember what it was like. I can remember snippets, but it was just all a blur. The midwife had Nate on the floor doing CPR with him. Tobin was behind me, and then all of a sudden these doctors and nurses from emergency just came into the room and were just working on Nate, trying to help him breathe. All I remember saying was the midwife was saying to everyone to be quiet because she couldn't hear what was happening with his lungs and she couldn't keep count of the CPR that she was performing on him. This was incredibly challenging. I had no idea when I was pregnant that this would happen. Not that anybody does. But all I knew to do, and all Tobin and I knew to do at this time, was to pray. And that is all that was our first instinct, was to pray. We had no idea, and the chaotic scenes that was happening in that room, we had no idea what was going on. All we could hear was the doctors and nurses working on Nate. And we were just praying by the bed, trying to get him to breathe. And all I kept saying was, why isn't he breathing? Why isn't he breathing? Why isn't he crying? That's all I kept saying. So the doctors and nurses worked on Nate for a while in the room, got him intubated, and he was breathing through a tube. and he was taken to the special care nursery in Casey Hospital, and then he was transferred to Monash Clayton in the children's ward, the NICU there. I didn't see him for very long. I maybe got to spend 5 minutes with him before he was transferred, and Tobin went with him in the ambulance, and I went back to my room by myself. Walked into the room and saw him on that mat, and he had all these tubes hanging out of him. He was on a cooling mat because he wasn't breathing when he was born. They were trying to protect his brain. So they dropped his body temperature, and he was just in a nappy on a mat. And so this, combined with having mum passed away 2 weeks earlier, was just very overwhelming and not what you thought would happen when you fall pregnant with your first child. The one thing, Nate was in hospital for about a week, and we were able to take him home after a week, and he has turned into a healthy 7-year-old boy, and you would not know his start at life now. But the one thing through that time, through those probably 2 or 3 week period there and afterwards, was the love and care that we had from our friends around us at that time. Life was chaotic at that time, and we knew that God was looking after us because we could pray to him, and we knew that he was looking after us. But our friends would come over and, while we were at the hospital, and clean our house and mow our lawns and cook us dinner so that we'd have dinner there for us at night. And it was just an amazing sense of relief that we could count on friends to pray with us. Our church family could pray with us at that time. Life was chaotic at that time. It's never been any more chaotic than then. So many different challenges were thrown at us that year. But we knew that God was in control, and we had a peace that God was watching over us. We had a peace that God was watching over Nate at that time. So I hope you've enjoyed that story. The thing for us that got us through that period that was so chaotic and it felt so out of control was that we had good friends around us that helped us get through that time by praying for us, providing meals, that sort of thing. So value your friendships, because you never know when you need to count on them. And always be a good friend. And also the other thing is that God is there for us. It was out of our control what was going on that year. But we knew that God was in control, and the peace that we have and the confidence that we have that we knew that God was there for us at that time helped us get through that. So thanks for listening. I encourage you to reach out to the church if you need to. See ya.